Hi, my name's Mike Hadlow. I'm the Artistic Director for the Professional Theatre Company here in Nelson. That is a small part of what this whole thing is about. Nelson is probably one of the most amazing regions in the country. Why? Its people, its businesses, its relative information about anything that you want is right here. Get on a plane, get in a car, walk, ride, do whatever you want, but come here because this is uniquely Nelson, and that's what we're about. It's the only place in the world that can be Nelson. Acting, it's my life. It could be your life, but preferably not. We don't want too many of you. I'm just kidding.
We are uniquely Nelson. What?
We are uniquely Nelson. Gotta go. Don't forget, we are uniquely Nelson. Bye.
Welcome to the Talk of the Town, proudly brought to you by Uniquely Nelson. I'm your host, Chris Butler, with Simon Duffy, General Manager of Uniquely Nelson. Today, we're coming to you from the lovely 8 Plates restaurant on Trafalgar Street. Joining us today is our esteemed guest, Nic Foster, the Community Engagement Manager for Nelson Building Society. It's fantastic to have you here, mate. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Tell us a little bit about where you hail from, Nick, and where do you come from?
Well, I come from Christchurch, but I don't say it out loud very often. I've been in Nelson for over 24 years now. And prior to that, lived in London for about 7 or 8 years. So, yeah, Nelson's probably my home now.
Yeah, right. So you passed the threshold because they say 20 years, although someone said they've put it up to 30 years before you're a true local. Yeah.
Was that the council's put it up?
I don't know. It's I've always known it as 20, but someone said no, they've changed it. It's 30 now.
Yeah. No, tell us about your journey in establishing yourself here in Nelson. Did you come back from overseas to New Zealand and come to Nelson, or you had holidayed here as a child? Or?
Yeah, so I used to come up here for holidays when I was in my 20s.
Yep.
Played cricket up here a few times. Basically, I came up here to a Peter Siddell art course run by the NMIT in about 1999. Peter Siddell, really well-known New Zealand artist. He used to paint beautiful Auckland villas and vistas across Tamaki Makaurau. I did a study with him for about 2 weeks, and then basically went back, was so inspired that I decided to come up and do the degree up here, which was at NMIT in 2000. So came up here and studied for 2 years and have been here ever since. So, yeah, I mean, it was an amazing time back then. NMIT used to have some fantastic courses. They ran winter art courses. There was a lot of engagement outside of the general curriculum at the NMIT.
Do you think that's changed over the years? The community?
Yeah, I think they stopped those courses quite a while ago, and they've changed a little bit of focus. I mean, they've got a lot of challenges in that polytech sector. I think they're going to have another name change soon. So, but you know, we've got a world-class polytech here. I think we've got one of the best all-wooden arts buildings in the Southern Hemisphere. Jeremy Smith, I think, was the architect there, and it's a beautiful building. I don't know if you've ever been inside there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So art's been, I guess, a little bit of a underrated gem in Nelson, hasn't it? Because when I was growing up here, the art scene was quite big. A lot of artists were moving and living here to practice art. I kind of feel that maybe it's disappeared a little bit off the radar compared to what it used to be, but it's definitely been a core of Nelson culture, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the art in its own place was a concept started by Anne Rush in the early 90s, and that was pretty much the formation of what was called the Arts Guide, the Nelson Arts Guide. And people, who were visiting the region could go and visit artists in their studios. And that was a fantastic premise. And that arts guide ran right through until 2015. And I think right through the late 90s and into the early 2000s, there was a really good art scene. Two interesting things happened. About 2008, we had the GFC.
Mhm.
And then post GFC, we had a mammoth rise in house prices. So people who wanted to come here and be artists suddenly couldn't afford to live here.
Yeah, right.
So, there is a little bit of that has influenced, the drop off the art scene. I think NMIT has also struggled to get students here.
Mhm.
They've done consistently well, but they're not really on the radar of the national kind of
Place to come to.
place to come to, which is a shame. And I think the other thing is, we've got quite interesting people moving here who are interested in investing and buying art. And that's, they're coming here for lifestyle changes. They can get the best mountain biking, best recreation and all sorts of things here in Nelson and still eke out a lifestyle if you've got.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But I think there are moves now potentially to address that, isn't there? I was talking to Lloyd and he said that in the pipeline there's a few ideas coming through that is going to assist with more artists, more artwork, but also the promotion of art. Is that right?
That's correct. So
Yeah.
I'm actually on the Mayor's Task Force, He Tautu Whetū. So that's a kind of a think tank, if you like, about how to move art forward in the region. And Lloyd's absolutely right. There's going to be a new development agency here in Nelson eventually, which will be like the old arts marketing. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember that back
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the early
yeah.
2000s.
Mm.
So it'll be along those lines, and it'll have an advocacy piece and a promotion piece, and really a good location point for a lot of artists who are coming to the region or who are already in the region looking for opportunities.
So there's an art strategy coming out of this forum or this.
So there is a new art strategy. It was put together by Johnny O'Donnell and partners, and that is in play now. So a lot of those recommendations are dropping out of that arts policy, which is great. So, yeah.
And you yourself have had your own attempts of helping to promote artists in the region. The Arts Expo got pretty large there at one point, didn't it?
Yeah, well, interestingly, we had the GFC in 2008, and a lot of people were doing quite well up until then, and especially in the South Island, we were massively impacted as an arts community by the 2011 earthquakes in Christchurch. I think about 20 galleries stopped operating overnight. So we had this kind of mental idea that we would have a big art expo at the Trafalgar Centre. We were only going to do it for 1 year and just, help the artists around the South Island. We had 90 artists come from around the South Island, and it ended up going for 8 years. Accidentally gave birth to a business, really. But it was incredible. So we had a lot of, really well-known New Zealand artists come, and it was a launching pad for some, new artists to get into galleries. So we had galleries come and shoulder tap people and go, hey, listen, we really want to be your representation for your artwork. So that was the pleasing part about it, was we gave people a jumping off point. Unfortunately, like many events in New Zealand, it got COVIDized. So we've had to hibernate that, in the current climate.
Yeah. Nick, you're currently the community engagement manager for the Nelson Building Society. What attracted you, or what got you into that role? Because there's sort of art and then there's business.
Yeah.
So bankers, pretty much. It's interesting, the two of them. How do you see?
Well, the NBS, Nelson Building Society, we're now called NBS. That's our brand. Was a kind of a community, old-fashioned financial institution that offered banking services. But one of the key tenets of their philosophy or their values was to give some of the profit back into the community. And they were looking for someone who had that sort of understanding of non-for-profits, social enterprises, charitable trusts, and someone who had a mix of ideas or understanding about how the sports, arts, community, environment, climate change, all those sort of things worked. So I had a background in running a non-for-profit. I was previously in Wellington City Council running their community recreation centre, so I had an understanding of the sports sector. And obviously, I've been a practicing artist for over 25 years. So I think they probably thought, well, this is a good fit for us. And, up front, I don't really offer any banking services or expertise.
So you can't open a check account for me right now? So,
no,
okay.
Absolutely not. And I can't even recommend anything. And that's not because I don't want to.
No.
It's because I'm not allowed to. But that's not the point. My point of the role is that we engage in, I think it's currently 340 non-for-profits, of which we give money in some shape or form to.
Throughout
And
the South Island.
throughout our 8 branches, yeah. And I look after probably between 180 and 200 of those in just the Nelson region.
Yeah, wow.
So every year we give away about $1.3 million into the community, and we see material impact.
Yeah. So there's a natural synergy from your past for this role. And it is known, I mean, there's the different banks that are here in Nelson, but NBS, I joke that there's a lamppost I drove past the other day, and you guys were sponsoring that lamppost because some famous All Black leaned up against it during a match or something. But you are very well. You can drive through Nelson for half an hour and you can see the sponsorship and support for different organisations within our community. I'd say, how long have you been? A year and a half, 2 years now?
Yeah, coming up 2 years in
2
May.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point. I mean, I think NBS, we're also the oldest building society in New Zealand. We're 162 years old this year. And, when you're around that long, your brand, should be recognizable. And, I don't want to comment on what the other banking institutions do with the community. And there's some very high level things they do. There's major sports in New Zealand. But I think when you live and breathe your community, you need to, in some way, shape, or form, support your community. And you either do it financially, or you do it through volunteering, or you just show up and support things. We've got great festivals and things. You've got to show up and support them, and spin the wheels. Invest in things, and buy little things and buy local, and all those sorts of things. So I think it's just an extension of that, really. NBS understand that the community has needs, and there are some serious needs out there and shortfalls in some of the big institutions. If you think about the Helicopter Trust and the hospice, they are sniff of an oily rag. So if we can help in some way, shape, or form, then we will do.
Yeah. I was going to say, within our organisation, Nic Nelson, our role is very much about relationship and networking. And quite often I come across people in organisations throughout Nelson who speak very highly of you personally, and I've been blessed in the support financially or anything they need has always been 100%.
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, it's very kind.
And that's true. I'm not just saying that. That is, people speak very highly of you in the NBS community.
And I was going to say, apart from dealing with Simon Duffy, what's probably the most challenging role that you come across in your role? What are the challenges for you?
Be careful. Very careful.
Oh, I think obviously it's the need across a wide range of our community groups. People are doing it tough at the moment. I think 2024 is going to be a particularly tough year financially for some groups. And, there's a piece in there which is not only trying to achieve good things, but it's also trying to get people to come and help. Sometimes we'll get a non-for-profit come to us and they're just struggling to find someone to be their governance person or their auditor or their accountant. And, that's a real struggle for some organizations. But they're doing great work. They're at the coalface and they're making a difference in people's lives every day, which is fantastic. So the challenge for me would be, when I see that, I go, well, crikey, how can I help? And I'm not an accountant, but, they don't fall out of trees, benevolent accountants. So, it's a kind of it's an ongoing thing, really. The other challenge, I think, would be, we've got some social dysfunction in some way, shape or form. I think post-COVID, there's still a lot of fear and a lot of apprehension to get back involved in community. I was very pleasantly surprised by the Arts Festival. We had a bit of a break this year. There was people back on the streets. It was fantastic to see. Well-attended events. That's just one example. I went to the Christmas market actually, and I think to be about 4,000 people wandering around Founders. So it was a really positive kind of turnaround. But that social dysfunction, I think, is a big challenge. Yeah.
Way to go.
Spare time. outside of work, what do you like to do apart from painting?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the studio. It's my sort of happy place. The other thing I love to do is swimming. So like every other Nelsonian, I know the high tide, and I know that if the weather's right and the tide's right, I'll meet everybody I know jumping off the steps around Te Hunanui Drive. Just come back from camping in the most fabulous place in the world, Tautranui. So that sort of thing. I love catching up with friends. Yeah, so just generally kind of socializing. I mean, Nelson's a pretty cool place to go out and do things. So 4 national parks within an hour and a half. Obviously, sometimes in the Able Tasman, love going down the lake. If we get a chance to go to Kahurangi, we'll do it. Yeah.
You operate from offices within Nelson City. So tell us about what you love being in the heart of Nelson City. What do you love about being in the middle here?
Well, Nelson's quite a beautiful town to look at. I mean, we've got some amazing trees and green spaces. I think I love being able to ride my bike. I have an electric bike, which I'm very passionate about. Try not to take the car anywhere now. And if I can do shopping with the electric bike, I will. So I love whizzing around town and going to meetings on a bike. I'll even bike out to meetings out as far away as Stoke if I can get there on time. So that's the beauty about Nelson. It's a very walkable, livable, rideable city. So yeah, and the light here, I think, for any artist or anybody who's been to the Mediterranean, it's a very Mediterranean light, very intense, very bright, and yeah.
Looking forward, Nick. In your opinion, what could be different or improved in Nelson City? I'm not saying there's anything dysfunctional, but if you had a wish list and a vision, 5, 10, 15, 20 years for you and your family.
It's a great question. We've just finished a whole series of workshops run by What If Wakatū, and there's some great things came out of there. But the things that resonated with me the most is, we've got to keep beautifying the city. I'd love to see, as part of any development, some sort of aesthetic requirement built in. So if you're building a building, you can't just put up a concrete building. It's got to have something interesting to it. And if you are putting up a concrete building, what is your planning around offsetting any emissions? And that can be done by, what are you going to grow on that building? Is it going to have a rooftop full of gardens or whatever?
Water,
I'd love to see that sort of thing be brought into it. I went out for lunch the other day and I was looking for somewhere green to sit, and I ended up sitting in the old bank square between the post office, the Kiwi Bank actually, and Buxton. And it was quite sweet in there, but I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if there was a big grassy area? And if anyone's travelled overseas, the lifeblood of any city is usually an inner city park or that sort of thing. And then thirdly, I think we've missed the boat a little bit about street art. So I sit on the council's public sculpture selection committee, and we've done some good work. There's been some great new sculptures in the city, but I'd love to see that turbocharged. We could make a real thing in this city of, when people are visiting, they can have a look at not only the suited collection, which is the art walk, which you see around the walls of Nelson, but really interesting sculpture, 3D pieces where people can really talk to it and engage with it and understand it and be wowed by it, actually. Yeah, so those are my 3 things. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
I've got a question for you. Maybe I'm trying to find out, down by Te Whauga Centre next to the river, there's that twirly wind. Who was the artist?
Phil Price.
Phil Price, local?
Well, his parents, I think, still live on Stanley Crescent. So Phil works out of his amazing studio in Littleton. He's a kinetic artist, and that work's a really significant work. And it's a beautiful one. A lot of people call it the Mickey Mouse ears or, the pebbles on sticks or whatever. But it is a beautiful little work. And his works are renowned. He's got works in Wellington. He's got works all over the place.
The reason I asked you that, I would have had half a dozen people over summer going, have spoken of that. Why don't we bring it in and put it between the House of Travel and the museum, right, a centerpiece in town? and I assume it was put down there on working with the council. But would be the question of wind tunnel will keep the thing moving? Because
Yeah, a good kinetic sculpture doesn't need much wind at all.
Yes.
It's a pretty good wind loading down there. It's
Mm.
it's near the river, so you always get good wind loading down through those
Yeah.
parts of the town. Just addressing that, the public art sculpture piece, it's quite a complex set of circumstances to get a public art piece up. I mean, we've
Mm.
got 8 iwi here that whakapapa to this region.
Yes.
And that is a very sensitive and delicate negotiation when you're putting any public piece of art, that you need to go and have good consultation processes with iwi.
Yes.
And then you've got to have a process through the council which suggests, whatever is located there is appropriate for the site.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not an easy process, but it's the thorough process now at the council.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very good.
Good.
Hey, Nick, thank you very much for coming in, mate. It's great to have you in and hear about your background and of course your artistic background in Nelson and what the artists bring to this fair city, and of course your incredible role with the community engagement manager with Nelson Building Society, and that must be a very satisfying position to be in, especially when you can help others out. So
yeah, it's a really rewarding role. I mean, I'm a passionate Nelsonian. If we can make a difference in the city, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make some sort of difference in the city. And it's a beautiful place, it's an absolutely beautiful place. So
we appreciate the work you do, and thanks very much for coming in, and keep up the good work.
You're very welcome.
Do you like the flowers?
The flowers in the city?
Flowers around the city, the pots?
Well, it's really pretty.
I thought you looked at the flowers around here.
No flowers in here. It's Valentine's, there's no flowers. Oh, don't.
Yeah, I think it adds value, definitely.
Yeah. So do we.
A heartfelt thanks to Nic Foster, the Community Engagement Manager for Nelson Building Society. Great to have him in and sharing his insights into community engagement and the impact in our local area. As always, a big shout out to the team at 8 Plates Restaurant, top end of Trafalgar Street, for their hospitality. You can find this episode along with others at uniquelynelson.co.nz or talknelson.co.nz. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to join us next time for the Talk of the Town. This is Chris Butler and Simon Duffy signing off. Until next time, Nelson, stay unique.
Stay unique. Cheers, Nick. Appreciate you.